we have a confession to make. Our first written budget was an epic failure. We're going to tell you why. Hi, I'm Hope.
And I'm Larry.
From Under the Median. Every week we talk to you about budgeting and living with joy and abundance on a budget. Because you know what? We raised our 4 boys debt-free on an income which was consistently under the U.S. national average income. So one of the questions we often get asked is, were you always really good at budgeting? And the answer is no. Absolutely not. I was going through a file folder that I have, and the file folder is labeled budgets. Well, while I was going through it this week, I found a gem. That's right, our very first budget from August of 1988. Now we're going to show you the actual budget. We're going to go over the numbers in the budget and show you exactly why. There are actually 10 really good reasons why this budget absolutely failed right out of the starting gate. It was not going to work, and there are reasons it wasn't going to work. But when I wrote up this first budget, one of the things you have to understand is that at the beginning of August, I'd actually gotten the mail. Larry was at work, and the bank statement was in the mail. So I brought it in, opened the bank statement, looked down at the figure at the bottom of the bank statement that told how much was in our account. And I realized that we had to have $25 in there to keep open our credit union account. So it was a credit union, needed $25 minimum to keep the account open. We had $29 in the account. For all intents and purposes, we were flat broke. We had $4 to our name that we could actually spend between then and the next payday. And that was when I realized we have a problem, because we had spent every single penny that we'd even gotten as wedding gifts. And we had some very generous gifts. We'd spent it all in the first 60 days of our marriage. And what was crazy is it didn't feel like we were living extravagantly. We weren't like taking big vacations. We weren't doing expensive things with our money. We were just living like we thought average people lived. But the problem was, we had absolutely no idea how much money was coming in, how much money was going out. And clearly, there was a whole lot more money going out than was coming in. So I tracked our expenses for the next 30 days, and this budget right here, budget for 1988, is the end result of that 30 days of tracking our expenses. Now, it looked pretty good on paper. On paper, it looked like we were going to make it. But you know what?
There was a lot of items missing.
There were a lot of things wrong with this budget.
Yeah.
So we're going to come clean today, and we're going to tell you everything that we did wrong with this budget. All right, number one, Larry, what's the first thing we did wrong?
Well, we were renting an apartment at the time. It was an apartment that she and her roommate got before we were married. We had no rental insurance.
No renter's insurance.
Nothing.
If something had happened to that apartment and had gone up in flames, everything that we owned would have gone up in flames with it, and we would have had zero to our name. Now, we're not huge proponents for spending money on stuff that you don't need, but believe me, even if you are renting, you need to have insurance. All right, what's the second thing that we were doing wrong?
Well, we were paying too much for rent. Now, it didn't seem like a lot of money at the time, and when we give you the figure, it will seem like cheap rent. We were paying $290 a month at this apartment.
Now, I'm going to show you. So Larry's actually going to...
Let's zoom in here.
Zoom in. All right. So we were actually making a little over $1,200 a month. Now, our rent, if you consider that rent really feasibly should be no more than 25% of your income, that falls right in there in that range. $290 shouldn't have been too much for us, but here is the problem. The problem is that when you consider all the other basic expenses that we had, for instance, when you consider the phone bill, when you consider the electricity, the gas and electricity, when you consider those things added into that $290, then that actual bottom figure soared above 35% of our income, which is what the experts will tell you. Don't spend any more than 35% of income on your whole housing combined. And that's what was throwing us off. But we didn't have even the basic knowledge to understand what was making it not work. But the first thing I did when Larry came home from work is say, we're going to have to move, because $290 a month was too much money.
How in the world were we spending $45 a month on gas? Gas was like $89.9.
Yeah, I know it. It was 90 cents a gallon, guys. We had 2 cars, but we weren't, traveling around a whole lot. $45 a month on gasoline for the car.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
All right, and that actually is number 3 on our list. We were just spending way too much on things like gasoline. We should have been able to look at that number and said, how can we cut back on this? What's the 4th thing we were doing wrong?
Well, we were spending way too much money on food, and we were buying bad food.
Yeah, oh my gosh, like 0 fiber. I'm being really honest here, guys.
Yeah.
The amount of fiber we put in our bodies per day back then was like almost nothing. Really seriously lacking in fiber and in nutrition. So we were eating food, and it was bad food, and we were spending, how much were we spending back then just for the 2 of us?
Food, $200.
$200
a month.
Y'all, in the year 2021, the first 5 months of 2021, I have spent $200 a month to feed all of us.
4.
All four of
us.
us.
Yeah.
And we eat really good, healthy food now. So that just goes to show you that I don't know what in the world we were buying in $1988 for $200, but that was way too much for us to be spending on food.
The budget was incomplete. Now, granted, we were just starting this process, so we had a lot to learn. But it didn't include things like clothing, haircuts, car repairs, Christmas,
Keep
eating
going.
out, dentist, doctor bills, over-the-counter medications, and we were spending money on those things.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Of course we were spending money on some of those things. The other thing we were spending copious amounts of money on was things for the apartment, things to get us all set up. Now we're going to show you 2 actual pages. We actually have our original 1988 expense book where we wrote down all of our expenses. We're going to show you an image of 2 actual pages from this book, and we'll go through it just a little bit at a time. So if you look at that first image, you'll see on August 26th of 1988, what did we buy, Larry, that we absolutely had no money for in the budget?
We bought a toaster oven for $10. And I don't know what we bought at Lectures, but it was $10.36. Who knows? Well, Nina's, looks like I bought some things for the house. A cord, plug, miscellaneous, some electronic things.
And we bought a birthday card. Y'all, there was no money in this budget for gifts. Like, apparently, if you knew us back then, you just weren't getting anything. Because it didn't appear in the budget. Christmas wasn't in the budget. Gifts weren't in the budget. Household wasn't in the budget. None of that was in this budget. Did the budget work? Well, the bottom line says our savings on these figures is $109.92 a month. But guess what? We probably had well over $109.92 in expenses every month that we just bought because we're like, well, we need it. We just need this. So we spent the money, even though when we looked at our paper budget, it didn't even appear. Clothing. I know. Mm-hmm. We were going to need clothes. So I want to show you on the second page that we're showing you of the budget. If you look over here in September, on September 3rd, I went to a garage sale of all places, a garage sale. And look what I spent on 2 winter shirts.
$20.
$20 bucks.
How?
What was I thinking?
Wow.
No, seriously, what was I thinking? I cannot imagine doing that. So I'm going to tell you that as you're looking at these pages, everything that I highlighted in yellow, that's highlighting that I added. And I added it for emphasis so you would really easily be able to see these are the items that we bought and these are the items that there was no category for them in the budget. We just simply spent the money.
Yeah.
What's the next thing we did?
Well, we didn't follow a budget. We bought antiques. We took weekend trips. We went out to eat quite a bit, as I recall. None of this was in the budget.
It was like we viewed the budget as a suggestion. This is just, it made us feel better, but did it really help us in the long run? No, because we just ignored it. And so we spent money on things we truly, truly could not afford. Now, we're going to show you yet another page from the budget. This is from August. Now, remember, I made this budget, and I probably made it sometime in August. So I'm looking at this written budget. And look what we did on August 18th. We took a little weekend trip.
Oh, yeah.
What'd we spend on the weekend trip, honey?
Well, we went to Six Flags and it looks like we spent a total of $62 on the hotel. We missed the gas. You got gas written down twice and had no figures in there
Yeah,
for
apparently,
it.
I don't know if I was just afraid to write it in or I realized we spent $62 we didn't have or
Well,
what.
this would have been at St. Louis, so that would have been about, I don't know, at least 250 miles one way. So
Yeah.
that would have been a little bit of gas. We bought taffy. Wow, those were the days. Basically, we took a trip we couldn't afford. We had fun.
And we bought meals at Six Flags.
Yeah.
$10. And it probably wasn't that much money even back then for $10 of food for two people at Six Flags. So we paid for a hotel, we paid for food, we paid for taffy, we paid for gas apparently twice. Twice. And I didn't write it in either time. And the $62 doesn't even take into account the gasoline that we spent. Now, here's the story. Here's how we justified. I know some of you are out there like screaming at us saying, how could you possibly do this? How could you justify taking a trip? The reason that the entrance to Six Flags does not appear on the list is because we didn't pay any entrance fee.
It was free.
It was free. I worked in radio. And back then, if you worked in radio, Six Flags comped you tickets. Because I was an on-air personality, you simply sent them a letter on station letterhead and said, I work in media, I'd like to request 2 tickets, and they sent you tickets for free. So because the tickets were free, instead of driving there, going to Six Flags and driving back the same day, we paid for a hotel, we paid for the food when we could have taken our lunch with us. My point is, this could have been a very affordable trip. And it could have been something that actually fit into our budget. But instead, we ignored the budget, wedged it in there, and just sort of held our breath and hoped for the best.
Yeah. Well, we didn't do the Dave Ramsey thing. We didn't give every dollar a job to do.
I'm not sure we even knew where every dollar was going.
No. And that really, to be fair, these weren't concepts that we had even stumbled across yet. This was stuff we were going to find on down the line. In fact, as we got into October, we were still in that apartment. You told me we got to get out of here. That's when we finally found out we were really over our heads.
That's when Hopi dropped the hammer.
The bomb.
And said,
Boom.
we need to get out of this apartment. We can't afford to live here anymore.
Yeah.
But the point is, I should count up all of the expenses that we went through in August and September that literally were not accounted for anywhere on the budget. Here's what I was banking on. You see this bottom line? Savings on this plan, $109 a month. That was supposed to be our cushion. But every single month, we were spending our cushion so that at the end of 2 or 3 months of using the budget, we had to admit it's not that the budget wasn't working. We weren't working with the budget. Mm-hmm. And I thought, we have got to figure this thing out. It was desperation, people, that drove us to figure out how to budget.
Another mistake that we made is that we didn't have any goals of any kind. We had no short term, middle term, or long term, or any term.
Zero.
No goals.
No goals whatsoever.
Basically living from paycheck to paycheck, and really we weren't even doing that.
It was pathetic. We had no emergency fund,
Nope.
Nor had it even occurred to us that we needed one. We just thought that $109 a month, well, we'd have a little bit of a cushion there. But we didn't, of course not, because there were so many things missing from the budget in the first place. And so we had no written goals. This is why we tell you all the time to write down your goals and track them. If you have goals and they're even just sitting in your head, they're not good enough. Here's why. When you write your goals down, there is statistically a 70% greater chance that you will actually reach that goal by doing that one simple thing. Write it down. Mm-hmm. And if you put that goal in front of your face where you can see it on a daily basis, your chances of success soar even higher. Not only did we not have them written down, we just didn't have any.
No, we didn't. We didn't at all. And then the final thing, number 10 on the list, is we didn't think critically about what we were spending our money on. We just bought things to make us feel good.
We were the king and queen of justifying every single spending decision that we wanted to make. Basically, we were like a couple of kids.
I said, I'll repeat it. Beulah said it too. You two are like a couple of kids.
If we wanted it, we spent the money. And we just figured it'll all work out somehow in the end.
And this is a 1940 radio. It sits over by the desk. This is a Philco Predicta. And that's a 1959 model. That's a chair I bought Hope a while back.
It's my rocking chair.
Yeah, she likes it real well.
But really, really quickly, within 60 days, we came to the end of the end. We were no farther ahead 60 days later than we were when I wrote this original piece of paper. And remember, our income was a little over $1,200 a month. We needed to do some really fast figuring out, and we did. So those, my friends, that's the honest, open, transparent truth about our first budget and why it was an epic fail. Hey, if you need some help on your budgeting, we actually have learned a thing or two through the years. And we would invite you to take a look at our personal finance planner. There will be a link up above and a link in the show notes that you can click on. It'll take you right to that page and tell you how you can get our 55 plus page personal finance planner, where I walk you step by step through how to set up a budget, how to set goals, and how to pay off debt. And we are super, super happy to offer that resource to you. Make sure that you give this budget a like, a thumbs up, and we would like to know in the comments, are you willing to tell us what your first budget experience was like? Did you rock it out of the ballpark? I hope you did. I really want to see a lot of, we knocked it out of the ballpark, we set up a budget, we followed it, and we were on track. I really, really hope that y'all did better than we did. But I'd love to know your experience with budgeting and your first budget and how that worked out for you. We will see you all next week.
You know what, Linda, this woman that works with Hope did?
Oh, yeah.
She,
Well, explain to
you
him
tell
that
her, you tell her.
my manager's name is Bob, and I was asking her what she did with a tape I had given her, and she goes, I gave it to Bob, Hope. I gave it to Bob, Hope. And she started laughing.
Cute.
Well, but she'd been doing things like that all day.